21 years ago, a young man named Ethan Miles vanished on his way home in the state of Missouri, disappearing without a trace and leaving his family plunged into pain and confusion. Authorities at the time suspected he had left of his own accord, but no body was found, there was no concrete evidence, and very few leads to follow, causing the investigation to quickly stall. However, in the years that followed, Ethan's mother never gave up hope. She believed her son could not have vanished for no reason, that something in this case had been concealed. Then one day, when a crew repairing the Gasconade Bridge where Ethan was last seen, they discovered a metal object buried deep in the ground, something that would change the entire direction of the investigation and force everyone involved to confront a shocking truth no one could have imagined. Before diving deep into this mystery that has spanned 2 decades, let us know where you're watching from, and if you love cases like this, don't forget to subscribe to follow the next part. February 2004, Central Missouri was gripped by bone-chilling cold. Thick fog blanketed the low hills running along the Gasconade River, where winding rural roads snaked hidden among leafless trees. The area was sparsely populated, with only a few scattered farms and sporadic lights from houses along the river. Ethan Miles, 21 years old, a tugboat worker on the Mississippi River route, had just finished a nearly month-long shift. Born and raised in Springfield, he lived with his parents and younger sister in a small house on the outskirts. Ethan was described by colleagues as hard-working, quiet, and always eager to return home after each trip. That evening, he left the dock in his silver pickup truck, carrying luggage and a few personal items, planning to reach Springfield that night. The route he took was familiar, crossing Pulaski County and then following the Gasconade Bridge to the main highway. Night fell early, cold wind whipped across the river, the road was wet, and headlights cast patchy reflections on the asphalt. A few locals around the Gasconade Bridge area later recalled seeing the silver pickup truck pass by, the engine noise echoing before fading toward the east bank. No one saw the truck turn back or stop in the middle of the road. That night, Ethan didn't call anyone, and his phone stopped ringing after midnight. His parents, accustomed to him arriving late, left the lights on waiting. As dawn began to break, the house remained silent, with no sign Ethan had returned. The bed was empty, the phone unreachable, and the truck not parked in the yard. By then, the family started to sense something unusual. They called friends and Ethan's colleagues at the dock, but no one knew where he was. As frantic calls only met intermittent signals, the father decided to report it to local police. The missing person report was received at the Pulaski County Sheriff's Office late that morning. The duty officer recorded the statement from Mr. Miles, Ethan's father, who was tense and barely able to piece the story together coherently. He said his son had left the dock the previous evening, should have arrived home that night, but there was no indication he had passed through Springfield. After verifying that Ethan had no history of running away or legal troubles, the unit on duty created an initial file and escalated the case to Sheriff Warren Keats. Keats, a veteran of nearly 30 years in the force, known for being cautious and by the book, believed they first needed to determine if this was a true missing person case or just a communication delay. Under regulations at the time, an adult absent for less than 24 hours wasn't classified as high-risk missing unless there was specific evidence of violence or accident. Nevertheless, under pressure from the family, Keats decided to deploy a preliminary check of the areas Ethan might have passed through. 2 patrol cars were sent along Route 17, the road connecting the dock to Springfield, mostly forested with little traffic. They stopped at gas stations, small stores, and riverside residences to ask for information, but no one from the previous night remembered anything unusual beyond a few vehicles passing as usual. The patrol team also swept the Gasconade Bridge area, believed to be the last point Ethan might have crossed. Below the bridge was a wide river with swift currents, old trails on both banks leading down to rocky shores. Officers noted the ground was damp and slippery, with tire tracks but faint, impossible to identify as any specific vehicle. They also found no dropped items. After more than 2 hours of searching, The report was submitted to Keats' office. No signs of altercation, violence, or traffic accident at the Gasconade Bridge area. No evidence indicating criminal activity. In the notes, one officer suggested temporarily classifying the case as pending verification until more information emerged. When informed of these results, Ethan's family strongly objected. They argued their son had no reason to disappear and hadn't taken luggage for a long trip. His mother pointed out that Ethan always called home after each voyage and had never let his phone go dead overnight. His father pleaded with police to expand an official search along the river, suggesting an accident might have occurred. But Keats maintained a cautious stance, insufficient grounds to deem it an emergency. He directed continued monitoring and sent internal alerts to nearby units in case a matching vehicle or person was spotted. That day, the sheriff's office received a few more calls from locals around Gasconade, but none provided verifiable information. The weather remained cold, thick fog obscuring most visibility on the back roads. By late afternoon, Keats signed a temporary report. No signs of violence, accident, or crime identified at the time of investigation. Possibility of victim voluntarily leaving the area not ruled out. The Miles family left the sheriff's headquarters in silence, clinging to fragile hope that their son had only encountered a minor issue and would soon return. But by that evening, with Ethan's phone still inactive and no one in the area citing his pickup truck, anxiety turned to genuine panic. The family returned to the headquarters, demanding police launch a comprehensive search along the Gasconade River route. At this point, the case was no longer just a routine missing person report, but had begun attracting attention from the small community around Pulaski County. The official search began early the next morning, when the Pulaski County Sheriff's Office approved mobilizing local rescue forces. The search team included 8 officers, 4 river rescue personnel, and over 10 local volunteers. They divided into small groups, fanning out in both directions along Route 17 and the Gasconade Bridge area, believed to be the last possible sighting of Ethan. Fog remained dense, steam rising from the river surface, limiting visibility to a few dozen meters. Temperatures below 5 degrees Celsius made diving difficult, while the ground around the bridge was slippery, mixed with mud and decayed leaves. By mid-morning, one rescue group reported finding a silver pickup truck angled off the path, leading down to the North Bank rocky shore below the bridge. The license plate matched the Miles family's description. Sheriff Keats arrived immediately. The truck was parked at an angle, right front wheel, lightly touching a dirt mound, with no signs of heavy impact. Doors were locked, keys still in the ignition. On the driver's seat, Ethan's bag was intact, including a jacket, a small notebook, and a few personal items. No signs of struggle, no blood, or footprints around the vehicle area. One officer noted the ground was still damp, possibly affected by fog and light rain overnight. Police used a digital camera to photograph the scene, but only took 4 pictures: overall bridge view, close-up of the truck, and 2 from the rear. No one in the group collected biological samples or fingerprints, as there was deemed no basis to suspect criminal activity. A volunteer diver was sent into the river to check, but the current was too strong, water murky, and visibility nearly zero. After over an hour, underwater search was paused. The on-site report noted no suspicious evidence, no biological traces or personal items discovered beyond the vehicle. Keats ordered the truck temporarily sealed for transport to headquarters for further inspection. However, sealing was merely formal. Bags were left as is, the truck not covered with a tarp. By afternoon, he allowed the truck to be towed from the scene and moved to the county impound lot. Police did not set up a perimeter barrier, allowing footprints on the ground to be erased by passers-by and rescue vehicles. As the search expanded to the south bank of the bridge, they found a small eroded section leading down to a sandy shore. This was where the river flowed swiftly, creating strong whirlpools. Some volunteers suggested that if someone slipped here, the chance of being swept away was very high. This note was added to the record, but without measurement photo. Over the next 2 days, The search team continued sweeping both banks, using motorboats to check waters around the bridge, but found nothing significant. Local media only reported briefly that the missing person's truck has been found, cause undetermined. Ethan's family was at the scene when the truck was towed up. They tried searching the trunk or back seat for anything indicating where he went, but everything was intact as if he had just stepped away momentarily. Miles asked police about fingerprint checks, but was told it wasn't necessary since there is no evidence of criminal activity. When asked about next steps, Keats said they would continue monitoring information and advised the family to be patient. That afternoon, the truck was handed back to the family under administrative procedure, as there was no hold order for evidence. One rescue worker suggested keeping it at least one more day for thorough checks, but this proposal was not recorded in the file. By day's end, the area around Gasconade Bridge returned to quiet. Only scattered tire tracks in the mud and a few wind-blown warning tapes remained. The search paused with the conclusion that the victim was not found and no signs of crime had occurred. To local police, the case seemed to stop at a person missing in bad weather. But for the Miles family, the truck appearing without anyone inside only deepened their worry. They couldn't understand why a careful person like Ethan would leave his vehicle in the middle of the night, in such a remote place, and never return. After the on-site search yielded no results, Sheriff Warren Keats directed the investigation to shift toward determining Ethan's movements in the final hours before his disappearance. The goal was to reconstruct his journey from leaving the dock until the truck was found near the Gasconade Bridge. The first step was for Keats to have the sheriff's office draft a formal request to Singular, Ethan's mobile service provider, asking for call logs, messages, and cell tower location data for the 48 hours prior to loss of contact. 3 days later, the detailed records were delivered to the office. From this data, officers identified 3 notable calls Ethan made on the night he vanished. A short call to a colleague in the afternoon, a longer call lasting over 5 minutes to his close friend Dylan Swearingen late in the evening, and the final call to his girlfriend Whitley Goodman. After the call with Whitley, no further phone activity was recorded. Singular's cell towers in 2004 only allowed location within a broad radius, typically 3 to 5 miles. The data showed Ethan's last call connected through a tower near the intersection of Route 17 and the road leading to the Gasconade Bridge. However, his exact position within that range could not be pinpointed, as the area was low hills interspersed with forest and river, where signals were easily distorted. GPS verification was not possible, since Ethan's phone was a standard model without positioning capabilities. Officers reviewed the message log, but most were work-related, with a few brief exchanges with Whitley that day. One detail that caught their attention was a gap of over an hour between the last 2 calls, during which Ethan's phone remained active but showed no data transmission. This could occur if the device moved through an area without coverage or was powered off. Keats believed Ethan might have stopped in a remote spot along his route home. The call data also showed no contacts with unknown numbers or service lines, ruling out the possibility of meeting a stranger en route. When questioned, Dylan stated the evening call was just a brief chat about Ethan heading back to Springfield and planning to meet up that weekend. Whitley confirmed speaking with Ethan, but described the call as nothing special. However, her account did not fully match the log times, as the record showed the call occurred later than she recalled. Police also checked gas station logs where Ethan might have stopped, but there were no credit card transactions after 8 p.m. This indicated that if he made a purchase or stopped, he paid in cash. For cross-verification, Keats ordered a review of security cameras at gas stations near the bridge, but most systems only retained footage for a few days and had already been overwritten. The compiled report after a week of analysis was submitted to Keats' office, concluding that the information gathered lacked sufficient basis to determine the victim's final location. The final note in the summary stated, "No unusual contacts detected, no signs of distress calls or suspicious recordings. Device ceased activity within Gasconade coverage area." Though these results brought no breakthrough, Keats believed they reinforced the initial assessment. Ethan likely encountered an issue on the road unrelated to criminal activity. The Miles family continued pleading for an expanded search, arguing the signal cutoff near the river might indicate an accident, but police maintained there was no concrete evidence. The investigation temporarily shifted to a waiting status, with a brief file note, victim's final location undetermined. After completing the phone data analysis, Sheriff Warren Keats redirected the investigation to gathering witness statements from areas Ethan might have passed through. His objective was to establish a real-time timeline between leaving the dock and the phone signal ceasing. The first task was to canvass stops along Route 17, where there were 2 gas stations and a late-open convenience store. At the gas station south of Pulaski County, the evening shift clerk Mary Henson confirmed encountering a young man matching Ethan's description early that evening. She recalled him filling up his tank, paying cash, and asking for directions to Springfield. Henson said he seemed in a hurry, but polite, with no signs of intoxication or loss of control. The transaction left no stored receipt, since the cash register was malfunctioning, and all payments were handwritten in a log. A faint entry in the log read silver pickup, stranger, approx. 20 years old. Beyond this account, no one else at the station remembered the vehicle returning or stopping a second time that night. Near the Gasconade Bridge area, a long-haul trucker named Ronald Tiller happened to pass at the corresponding time. In his statement, he reported seeing a light-colored pickup truck parked on the north shoulder of the bridge, taillights faintly glowing, but no one standing nearby. He did not stop, assuming it was a temporary breakdown. He estimated the time as after 9 p.m., aligning with the window of Ethan's final logged call. When pressed for more details, Tiller said he only remembered the truck was not old, with a covered bed, and could not identify the license plate or anyone inside due to poor lighting and thick fog. Another team was sent to residences around the bridge area. Most residents affirmed hearing no unusual noises that night. Only one family on the East Bank said their dog barked furiously around near midnight, but when they checked outside, they saw nothing out of the ordinary. The responding officer's note stated, "No clear connection found between the incident and the disappearance." Concurrently, the crime scene technicians re-examined the truck's discovery location for additional traces. The ground around the area was mostly wet mud, with many spots eroded by rain. They found several tire tracks, but none clear enough to identify tire type. Photos showed at least 2 intersecting track directions, but without casting molds, comparison analysis was impossible. One officer noted in the record that the tracks could belong to rescue vehicles or passers-by after the scene was released. No distinct footprints were found beyond the deep mud near the truck, and that area had not been cordoned off. The search around the bridge extended 300 meters downstream, where there was a sandy shore and a small trail leading to the river. There, the rescue team found an empty soda can and a candy wrapper foil, but could not confirm relation to the case. All stray items were collected, photographed, and placed in a shared evidence bag without detailed position notes. When compiling all sources, Keats concluded the witness data and traces did not indicate any criminal activity. The internal report stated clearly, the gas station witness confirmed the victim was alive that evening. The second witness only saw the vehicle stopped roadside without witnessing an incident. No physical signs indicated collision, violence, or a third party at the scene. Although the details aligned temporally to reinforce that Ethan was in the Gasconade area the night he vanished, they still did not clarify what happened afterward. The final report for this phase, submitted by week's end, was summarized in one brief sentence: external witness statements and traces lack sufficient basis to conclude criminal possibility or cause of disappearance. After completing external witness verification, Sheriff Warren Keats decided to shift focus to individuals directly connected to Ethan on the day he disappeared. The first person brought in for questioning was Whitley Goodman, Ethan's girlfriend of nearly 6 months prior to the incident. The interview took place at the Pulaski County Sheriff's Office in early March afternoon, when the disappearance had stretched nearly a week without progress. Whitley arrived with her mother, appearing cooperative, neatly dressed, and speaking softly. In the interview transcript, she stated that Ethan had stopped by her apartment on the outskirts of Springfield after leaving the dock that evening. They talked for about an hour and had a minor argument about her going out with friends while he was away for work. According to her, Ethan seemed tense, then stood up saying he would drive home and ended the conversation. She said that was the last time she saw him. When asked for specific timing, Whitley said she couldn't remember exactly, but maybe around 9 p.m. or a little later. Police cross-referenced this with call data from the provider, showing their phone conversation occurred after that time, making her stated timeline off by nearly an hour. When Keats asked if she left the house during the remaining time frame, Whitley replied she stayed home alone, watched a movie, and went to bed early. No one could confirm this. Her apartment was in a small rental complex with only one upstairs neighbor, who later stated hearing no arguments or engine noises that night. Police inquired about their relationship. Whitley described Ethan as a good person, sometimes hot-tempered but not violent. She insisted there were no serious conflicts between them. When asked if Ethan seemed worried or intended to go far away, she said he was just tired from work and wanted to go home. The transcript noted she remained calm throughout, without strong emotion. After the interview ended, Keats remarked to his clerk that she spoke clearly, without evasion. However, he also noted that Whitley's lack of alibi for the night remained a point for consideration. The next day, 2 officers were sent to inspect her apartment. They recorded no unusual signs. The room was tidy, belongings neatly arranged, no stains or signs of struggle. A blanket on the sofa smelled of perfume and a half-finished coffee mug, but usage timing could not be determined. Police did not collect samples, deeming no evidence of crime. They only took a few photos for the file and left. In a supplemental statement, Whitley mentioned Ethan had seemed down a few weeks earlier due to financial pressure. She said he often worried about sending money to his family and sometimes complained about wanting to get away from everything for a while. Keats recorded this detail, believing it might support the voluntary departure theory. However, the Miles family vehemently objected upon hearing this, insisting Ethan never mentioned leaving or showed depression. Police nonetheless maintained a neutral stance. In the internal report, Keats wrote, Whitley Goodman provided statement consistent with overall timeline data. No indication of her direct involvement in victim's disappearance. She lacks verified alibi for 21 o'clock, 23 o'clock hours. But no factors suggest criminal conduct. In the conclusion, a brief line was typed: preliminary assessment, no probable cause of foul play. With these results, the official investigation treated Whitley's statement as the final confirmation that Ethan was alive before vanishing. As she left the sheriff's office, she was not required for further testing or cooperation. The case thus entered a stalled phase, with all leads stopping at one point. Ethan left his girlfriend's house, drove off, and then disappeared without a trace. After completing the interrogation session with Whitley Goodman, the police moved on to working with Ethan's best friend, Dylan Swearingen, who was mentioned in the phone data as the person with the longest call with him on the night of the disappearance. Dylan was invited to the Pulaski County Sheriff's Office the next morning. He was 22 years old, working part-time at a local auto repair shop, described as outgoing, fast-talking, and frequently driving around in a dark green pickup truck. During the session, Dylan appeared willing to cooperate, sitting with his arms crossed, answering each question steadily. He stated that on that evening, Ethan had called him from the dock, saying that the work trip had ended and he was on his way back to Springfield. Dylan said they briefly discussed meeting up over the weekend to drink beer and watch baseball. Then, according to him, Ethan called again around just after 8 p.m., asking him to come pick him up because he felt tired and didn't want to drive himself. Dylan recounted that he agreed and drove from Springfield to the meeting point at the gas station near the Gasconade Bridge. When he arrived, he saw Ethan's vehicle already parked there. He said Ethan looked tired and like he was thinking about something, but not drunk or showing any unusual signs. Dylan affirmed that he drove Ethan back to Whitley Goodman's apartment, because Ethan said he wanted to see her before heading home. After stopping in the parking lot in front of the building, Dylan said he only stayed for a few minutes before leaving because he didn't want to intrude on their private matters. According to him, this was around 9 p.m. The police noted this statement and temporarily considered it reasonable compared to Whitley's account that Ethan had come to see her. However, when cross-referencing with cell tower data, the final call between Ethan and Whitley occurred nearly an hour later, and Ethan's phone signal was still recorded in the Gasconade area rather than Springfield. This discrepancy was not clarified during the interrogation. Keats did not request verification of Dylan's travel itinerary, nor did he check traffic cameras or fuel receipts to confirm the time he left the area. In the record, there were only a few brief lines. Witness Dylan Swearingen, cooperative, clear statement, no signs of evasion. When asked about his relationship with Ethan, Dylan replied that they had known each other since high school, often went fishing, and had a good relationship. He affirmed there were no conflicts, no debts, or financial disputes. The police noted the additional detail that Dylan had met Whitley a couple of times, but was not close. The interview concluded in less than an hour. There was no request to examine Dylan's phone or vehicle, nor any record of taking comparison samples. Immediately afterward, Keats signed off on the file, stating that the witness had fully cooperated and did not need to be recalled unless new developments arose. Internally, a young officer suggested examining the time discrepancy between the statement and the cell tower data, but this note was overlooked when compiling the report. The reason given was that technical errors in the 2004 mobile positioning system could cause times to not match perfectly. The final report of the interrogation session was closed in less than 2 pages, affirming that the witness's statement is consistent with existing information and shows no criminal elements. No additional investigative steps were taken afterward. The case, though still unsolved, was considered to have completed the basic interrogation phase. As Dylan left the sheriff's office, he shook hands with Keats, saying he would be available to cooperate if needed. Sheriff Keats nodded, thanked him, and filed the record back in the metal cabinet with the other transcripts. At that point, the entire case had been narrowed down to just scattered facts: a missing person, a vehicle abandoned by the river, and 2 witnesses providing statements that did not clearly contradict each other, but also did not prove anything. In the weekly report, Keats noted, "All involved individuals have been interrogated, no criminal elements detected. File temporarily kept in open status." Following the session with Dylan, the investigation made no significant progress. There was no new evidence, no additional calls or witnesses, and Ethan Miles's disappearance gradually came to be regarded as a case of voluntary departure or an undetermined accident. In the following days, the Springfield News Leader only ran a short article, ending with the sentence, "Police say there are no signs indicating criminal activity." 3 months after Ethan Miles was reported missing, the Pulaski County Sheriff's investigation officially reached a deadlock. All verification directions had been implemented at a basic level. The scene, witnesses, phone data, and statements from directly involved individuals. There was no body, no specific physical evidence, no clear signs of violence or accident. Everything stopped at a series of assumptions and unfillable gaps. From early May, Sheriff Keats's office gradually reduced personnel on the case, retaining 1 investigator to monitor any emerging information. Volunteer searches along the river also stopped due to rising water and strong currents. The file noted 2 additional reports from citizens of objects floating on the river, but checks yielded negative results. No new leads. On May 12, 2004, Sheriff Keats signed the summary report for the initial investigation phase, consisting of 7 typed pages. The report clearly stated, no body, physical evidence, or criminal traces found. No concrete evidence indicating the victim was in danger due to criminal activity. Possibility of voluntary departure from residence not ruled out. In the conclusion section, the bolded line read, "Voluntary disappearance possible." This report was sent to the county prosecutor's office and filed into the administrative system with the status pending closure. No foul play suspected. For Keats, this was standard procedure when there was no specific evidence. The case was kept open for 6 months, then moved to temporary storage. However, for the Miles family, this was a shock. They could not accept the police viewing their son's disappearance as a voluntary act. Ethan had no reason to leave. He had a stable job, good family relationships, and no financial difficulties. His parents submitted a request to reopen the investigation, attaching evidence they had gathered themselves such as fuel receipts, Ethan's work schedule, and co-worker testimonies showing he planned to head home that night. However, Keats's office responded that there is no basis to restart the case without new evidence. The family then sent a letter to the Missouri State Police, but the request was returned on the grounds that the case still fell under Pulaski County's jurisdiction. Mrs. Miles continued to visit the office multiple times to ask for updates, but only received short answers. The file was in waiting status, no new developments. In June of that year, the missing person notice in the local newspaper was removed, replaced by articles about the upcoming storm season. In the small community around Gasconade, the case gradually became a passing topic before fading into oblivion. Some people thought Ethan might have had an accident on the river with the body not yet found. Others believed he left due to personal pressure. The police neither confirmed nor denied any hypotheses. They simply filed the record, periodically updating that no new discoveries. At the end of June, Keats signed the final administrative document, officially suspending active investigation. The document stated, "The disappearance of Ethan D. Miles is recorded as an adult voluntarily leaving or missing with undetermined cause. No basis to establish a crime." The file was transferred to the county's storage archive with a temporary numbering code, awaiting re-examination if new evidence emerged. From then on, the case was hardly mentioned in internal meetings. The Miles family persisted in searching on their own, posting flyers at rest stops and overpasses along interstate routes, but time passed without bringing anything new. For the local police, the case had been completed according to procedure. A missing person with no signs of crime, files stored on schedule, and all records valid. In the administrative system, next to Ethan Miles's name, there remained only a short status line, "Case inactive." No further action required. In early 2005, after the 3-month monitoring period for the temporary file expired, Ethan Miles's disappearance was officially transferred from the Pulaski County Sheriff's Office to the Missouri State Storage System. This procedure was carried out under new regulations from the State Department of Justice to standardize unsolved cases or those without clear criminal evidence. On January 18th, the handover transcript was signed between the Pulaski County representative and the Special Records Room of the Missouri State Highway Patrol. In the transcript, the case was coded as MF-04-117, consisting of 4 document folders, 2 CDs containing scene photos and phone report copies. The summary description in the file clearly stated, "Victim Ethan D. Miles, male 21 years old. Status, missing with undetermined cause. No signs of crime. File suspended from investigation, transferred to state storage per regulations." This transfer meant that all active investigation authority ended at the county level. The Pulaski County Police Office only retained a coordination role if support was requested. In the state system, file MF-04-117 was placed in the closed missing person category, along with hundreds of similar cases from counties across the state. The storage structure included identification code, year of occurrence, and priority level. Ethan's file was classified as low priority, due to no violence factors, no body, and no physical evidence. An administrative clerk at the time noted beside it, "No basis to suspect crime, no need for periodic updates." In the following years, the file was accessed only twice, once in 2007, when the State Police Office conducted periodic inventory, and once in 2010, during the data conversion to electronic format. Each time, the file was only opened to confirm complete pages and no missing transcripts. No new additions were made. The Miles family occasionally still sent letters or called the state storage room to inquire about the case status, but the response was always the same: no updates since 2004. During that time, Pulaski County had many new cases, causing Ethan Miles's disappearance to be nearly forgotten in collective memory. Sheriff Warren Keats retired in 2008, handing over all old files to his successor. In his retirement report, he noted briefly, "No further progress, case handled per standard procedure." In Springfield, Ethan's parents maintained contact with the state police, periodically sending letters reiterating requests to reopen the investigation, but received no specific response. Those letters, after being received by the administrative office, were clipped into file MF-04-117 under the Correspondence Family section. Each envelope was stamped with the receipt date and then never opened again. In the storage warehouse in Jefferson City, thousands of files lay on steel shelves, each with a number label. Older folders, like MF-04-117, were placed on the lower levels, in areas rarely visited. Each year during inventory, staff only randomly opened a few folders to confirm quantities, then resealed them. There was no regulation requiring them to review content if the case was not officially requested by the prosecutor's office or a new investigative unit. The systematization of files helped the storage agency easily search when needed, but it also caused many missing person cases to fall into indefinite dormant status. According to internal statistics in 2013, Missouri had over 2,000 such files, people who vanished without a trace, without evidence, without suspects. Ethan Miles was just one of them. In the electronic list, his name appeared amid a long string of codes, with no additional notes beyond the status line, inactive. No one in the state police office still remembered this case, and no one had reason to reopen it. For the legal system and administrative procedures, file MF-04-117 had been completed correctly, fully preserved, without violations. But for the Miles family, the existence of a file bearing their son's name was merely proof that all search efforts had been buried in dusty stacks of paper. Every year in February, they still sent another letter to the same address, hoping someone would read it again, or at least remember that the disappearance had never been explained. In April 2019, the state of Missouri launched a large-scale criminal record digitization program, coordinated by the Department of Justice and the State Archives Bureau. The goal was to convert all old records, especially unsolved cases or those closed before 2010, to electronic format to prevent damage and facilitate searching. The project was implemented at the Central Warehouse in Jefferson City, which held tens of thousands of paper files from counties across the state. In the first phase plan, the technical team scanned and cataloged files with codes from MF01 to MF10, including Ethan Miles's disappearance, code MF-04-117. On May 8, 2019, this file was removed from the bottom steel shelf. The document folder was old, with a cover turned dark brown, edges slightly peeling. The scanning clerk was administrative technician Laura Mendel from the digital storage room of the State Department of Justice. Per procedure, she had to unseal it, check for complete documents, reorganize the order before transferring to the high-speed scanner. In the original catalog, file MF-04-117 was listed as consisting of 4 parts: 1 scene investigation transcripts, 2 witness statements, 3 phone data and area maps, 4 summary reports and investigation conclusions from Pulaski County. However, upon opening the folder, Laura noticed a mismatch. The scene investigation transcripts part only had 2 black and white photocopies, while the original catalog recorded 4 color photos of the Gasconade Bridge area and the victim's pickup truck. Worse, the summary reports and investigation conclusions folder was completely missing from the cover, leaving only a loose cover sheet labeled Report by Sheriff W. Keats, May 2004. Laura noted in the internal transcript that the file was incomplete according to the 2005 catalog. She paused the scanning process and reported to her direct manager, Mr. Richard Klein, who oversaw the Central Area Digitization Team. Klein rechecked the 2005 storage registration log and confirmed that the file had been handed over with all 4 folders. He directed the team to search again through the same batch boxes, but found no missing parts. An electronic copy of the 2005 storage catalog also confirmed that file MF04117 included scene image documents and temporary conclusion report. Both items were no longer in the original folder. By the end of May, the technical team had to prepare an anomaly report to send to the State Archives Supervision Office. In the report, Laura clearly stated, "Documents may have been lost during transfer or long-term storage. Does not rule out administrative error or loss outside inventory procedures." The Supervision Office then required a full inspection transcript for all files originating from Pulaski County in 2004, 2005, to verify if this was an isolated incident or systemic. In the preliminary summary report, besides the Ethan Miles case, only 2 other files were noted as missing pages, both minor theft cases. However, MF04117 was marked notable because it was a disappearance case with scene investigation factors. The Supervision Office decided to escalate this information to a higher level, the Missouri State Inspector General's office, to verify whether there was any violation of storage procedures or unauthorized file alteration. Per regulations, the loss of investigative documents, even if not directly affecting an open case, was still considered a serious error if there was no handover transcript or valid reason. On June 17, 2019, the OIG issued a receipt notice requiring preservation of the current status of file MF04117 and suspension of digitization until the inspection was complete. The entire document folder was resealed in a new envelope, accompanied by transcripts from Technician Mendel and Manager Klein. In the report sent to OIG, Mendel wrote, "The scene photos listed in the original catalog include 1. Gasconade Bridge, viewed from the south. 2. Victim's pickup truck, Springfield County license plate. 3. Detail of vehicle door and keys in the ignition. 4. Riverside grass area." None of the 4 photos above are currently in the file. The loss of the investigation conclusion part also made it impossible to determine the official status of the case when closed. The only remaining note on the cover page was "voluntary disappearance possible, but without confirmation signature or official seal." The OIG then opened a limited review, focusing on the 2005 transfer phase. They discovered that in the handover transcript between Pulaski County and the state of Missouri, the attached document catalog only had general descriptions, without specifying page counts or storage media. This made determining responsibility for the loss nearly impossible. The internal report concluded, unable to determine the time or individual responsible for the document shortfall in file MF04117. Possible administrative error or loss during pre-2010 warehouse storage. Although no evidence of intentional violation was found, the OIG still recorded the case in the supervision list. The file was returned to the central warehouse with a yellow warning label. Under review, incomplete record. By the end of 2019, the digitization program continued, but file MF04117 remained in incomplete status. In the new electronic data system, Ethan Miles's name appeared with a short red note, "Digital scan suspended pending inspection." That was the first time in nearly 15 years that Ethan Miles's disappearance was mentioned again in an official document. In March 2023, after nearly 2 decades since Ethan Miles's disappearance faded into oblivion, the Gasconade Bridge area, the last known point in his journey, was included in a federal infrastructure repair project. The project was managed by the Missouri Department of Transportation, with items involving reinforcement of bridge piers and expansion of pedestrian pathways. In the second week of construction, a local contractor's crew discovered a strange object while excavating soil on the West Riverbank, about 30 meters from the main bridge pier. According to MoDOT's internal report, the object was described as a small metal box, approximately 25 by 15 centimeters in size, with a rusted surface buried shallowly under a layer of clay. Initially, they thought it was old construction debris, but when attempting to move it, the lid popped open, revealing several small items wrapped in plastic bags inside. Noticing something resembling an ID card, the site supervisor immediately notified authorities. The Missouri State Highway Patrol arrived at the scene that afternoon. They prepared a seizure transcript for the box and sealed the evidence. In the scene report, Lieutenant David Garner, the shift supervisor, clearly noted, inside the box were three main items: one, a Missouri State Citizen ID card in the name of Ethan D. Miles, issued in 2003, 2, a silver watch engraved with EME on the back, 3, a black mini EDV tape with a faded label, contents undetermined. Despite moisture damage, the characters on the card were still legible. When cross-referencing the database, the name Ethan D. Miles immediately matched file MF0-4117, the 2004 disappearance case previously stored in Jefferson City, with no final conclusion. Recognizing the coincidence, the state police immediately notified the Inspector General's office, the unit that had handled the 2019 document loss, to confirm a possible connection. On the afternoon of March 14th, a supplementary evidence discovery transcript was prepared, and file MF0-4117 was officially changed from under review, incomplete record, to reactivated, evidence found. This was the first time in nearly 20 years that a state-level closed missing person case was reopened due to new evidence. The items were taken to the Missouri State Forensic Laboratory in Columbia for processing. The technical report showed the silver watch was a limited edition 2002 Bulova model with EM and the date July 15, 02 engraved on the back. The serial number matched a purchase receipt the Miles family had provided during the initial investigation, confirming it was Ethan's personal property. The ID card, though deteriorated, still had identifiable photo and ID code under UV light. The mini DV tape was transferred to a special restoration unit under the state's Image Data Analysis Center. The cleaning process took over 2 weeks due to severe oxidation, with the plastic casing nearly disintegrating. After drying and separating segments, the technical team recovered about 37 minutes of continuous footage. Initial data was not released immediately, but in the summary transcript sent to the Department of Justice, experts confirmed the tape contained footage in a confined space with low light, many segments with interrupted audio, but showing a young man in gray work overalls, matching Ethan Miles's 2004 file description. Additionally, both the watch and ID card were stored in separate plastic bags, leading investigators to suspect someone had intentionally preserved them rather than them being washed away or lost due to natural disaster. According to the scene technician, rust on the box indicated burial in a moist environment for many years, but not as long as 20, estimated at 10 to 12 years before discovery, around 2011-2013. This raised a major question: who placed the box there, and why did it only surface during bridge foundation excavation after nearly a decade? On March 22, the state police issued an internal notice reactivating the investigation and requested retrieval of all evidence files related to Ethan Miles. The Jefferson City Archive received orders to unseal file MF0-4117 and transfer hard copies to Columbia for comparison. The reactivation document was signed by Special Investigations Commander Captain Sandra Cole, marking the case officially listed as Cold Case Reopened, Active Review 2023. In the following days, the investigation team reconstructed a diagram of the box discovery area, created GPS maps, and took detailed photos of the burial location. The scene was temporarily cordoned off for expanded surveying. Surrounding soil was sifted for additional traces or similar materials, but yielded no significant results. The summary report noted, evidence appeared within 100 meters of the 2004 vehicle discovery location. High likelihood of connection between the two events. Information about the discovery was quickly forwarded to the Missouri State Prosecutor's Office, and the digital unit for mini-DV tape processing. After nearly 2 decades, a disappearance thought closed was officially back under investigation. And in the state's electronic data system, the status next to file code MF04117 was updated for the first time since 2005 reopened. Evidence recovered, March 2023, after file MF04117 was reactivated, samples seized from the metal box were transferred to the Missouri State Forensic Laboratory in Jefferson City for DNA analysis. The analysis followed standard procedures for cold cases, with all evidence reprocessed using next-generation molecular biology technology. On March 27, 2023, the lab unsealed the silver watch, Idaho card, and metal box. Technicians collected trace epithelial cells from the watch strap, clasp, and back surface engraved. EM July 15, 02. The metal box casing was also swabbed for adhered dust and biological traces. All were separately coded 04117A1, 04117B1, and 04117C1. These samples then underwent extraction via the automated Maxwell RSC system, followed by STR region amplification to create full DNA profiles. Within 5 days, the forensic lab completed comparisons with the stored biological sample database for unresolved missing persons cases. The first result was released on April 3, 2023. DNA on the silver watch matched 99.998%, with hair samples collected from Ethan Miles's apartment in 2004, previously used for identity verification in the initial investigation. This match definitively confirmed the watch belonged to Ethan and had direct contact with his body before disappearance. However, the second result drew more attention from the team. DNA from the box edge showed 2 individuals, one very faint trace matching Ethan, and a clearer sample from an unidentified male in the state system. When expanding to the National CODIS database, the match aligned with the biological profile of Dylan Swearingen, the individual interrogated in the 2004 Ethan Miles case as a close friend and the last person reportedly in contact with the victim. Dylan's profile was in CODIS due to voluntary sampling when applying for a hunting license after a 2012 administrative violation under the state's storage program. This match made the result particularly significant. On April 5, the forensic lab sent the official report to the Missouri State Bureau of Investigation, the unit handling cold cases. The 13-page report, signed by Chief Forensic Examiner Dr. Raymond Holt, stated, Evidence 04117A1 contains DNA matching Ethan D. Miles. Evidence 04117B1 contains a mixture of at least 2 individuals' DNA, with the dominant component fully matching Dylan Swearingen's DNA profile. The report also confirmed the sample could not result from cross-contamination during collection, since the box was sealed at the 2023 scene, while Dylan's reference sample entered the system in 2012, nearly a decade before the box discovery. This ruled out technical error and reinforced that Dylan had direct contact with the box sometime after 2004. Upon receiving the report at MSHP, the cold case section immediately reopened in-depth investigation. Lieutenant Colonel Nancy Reeves was assigned case lead. In her internal memo to the department director, she wrote, Dylan Swearingen's DNA on evidence buried near the old scene suggests possible concealment or direct involvement in Ethan Miles's disappearance. New statements must be collected, and Dylan's activities in 2011-2013 reviewed the likely burial period. Concurrently with sending the report to the Bureau, the forensic lab prepared a separate archive for the Missouri State Prosecutor's Office in preparation for potential formal criminal investigation. The document was classified sensitive evidence, active cold case. DNA specialists continued expanded analysis, including estimating cell age based on DNA degradation levels. Preliminary results showed Dylan's DNA degraded over about 12 years, consistent with burial estimates from 2011 to 2013. This formed a logical chain matching prior scene technician assessments. On April 9, 2023, the results summary was sent to the State Department of Justice Director's Office and Special Investigations Unit. In the report's final line, Dr. Holt noted briefly but strikingly, high likelihood evidence was handled or buried by an individual directly connected to the victim and familiar with the old scene area. That same day, the state data system updated file MF04117 status for the second time that year, active DNA match confirmed. After nearly 20 years, the disappearance thought forgotten officially entered the forensic investigation phase, and old questions were raised once more, this time with scientific evidence in hand. In early January 2024, after DNA results were confirmed and transferred to the Missouri State Bureau of Investigation, the State Department of Justice Director issued a decision establishing a special investigation team to comprehensively review Ethan Miles's disappearance. Case code MF04117, now reclassified as cold case, active investigation. The appointed team leader was Captain J. Arrington, a veteran investigator who had handled numerous unsolved cases in central Missouri. Arrington, with over 20 years in late trace detection, had participated in complex disappearances in the Ozarks region and was highly regarded for analyzing old files with modern investigative technology. On January 10th, Arrington and his 6-member team officially received all documents, evidence, and digital data related to Ethan Miles. The initial meeting took place at MSHP headquarters in Jefferson City, attended by representatives from Forensics, Transportation, and the State Prosecutor's Office. Goals were clearly stated: determine the sequence of events on the night of February 26, 2004, reconstruct Ethan and Dylan's routes, and understand why Ethan's evidence reappeared near the scene. Nearly 20 years later. In the first week, Arrington's team reviewed all physical files. They examined handwriting in former Sheriff Warren Keats's old transcripts, cross-referencing with copies still held in Pulaski County. They discovered an overlooked detail in the 2004 singular phone records. Besides known calls between Ethan, Dylan, and Whitley, there was a short text message sent from Ethan's phone around 9:47 p.m., minutes after the final call ended. The message, sent to Dylan's number, read "Meet back at Bridge," but in the original report, this line was faintly marked and not mentioned in the final summary. Original backup data was now clearly recovered through digitization. This led the team to suspect Dylan may have returned to the Gasconade Bridge area after initially leaving Ethan. Contrary to his 2004 statement that he went home right after dropping his friend. For verification, Arrington requested the technical unit retrieve all long-term traffic camera data. Although Highway 17 surveillance was not widespread in 2004, the Missouri Department of Transportation maintained experimental cameras along the Gasconade Bridge to record traffic volume in a pilot project. These recordings were digitized in 2015 and stored at MoDOT's Columbia Data Center. After nearly 2 weeks of review, Arrington's technical team found a blurry but valuable video segment between 9:40 and 10:10 p.m. On February 26, 2004, the same dark-colored pickup truck appeared twice, matching the model Dylan Swearingen owned, a 2000 Ford Ranger. First, the vehicle traveled south to north, crossing the bridge at 9:44 p.m. Second, the same vehicle appeared in the opposite direction at 10:05 p.m., just about 20 minutes later. Due to low resolution, the license plate was unreadable, but light patterns and body style were confirmed by image analysis as 97% matching Dylan's vehicle records. Additionally, Arrington discovered that in the old investigation file, there was no evidence Pulaski police ever requested MoDOT camera data, despite the system being operational at the time. The omission of image data meant Dylan's timeline statement had gone unverified independently for 2 decades. The team's preliminary report, completed January 28, 2024, concluded that new image evidence confirms the presence of Dylan Swearingen's vehicle at the Gasconade Bridge area, twice on the night Ethan Miles disappeared. This, combined with Dylan's DNA on the 2023 metal box, formed initial grounds to suspect Dylan returned to the scene or participated in concealing evidence. During review, Arrington's team also compared all 2004 interrogation transcripts with new forensic data. They noted multiple minor inconsistencies in Dylan and Whitley's statements, particularly regarding departure time from Springfield and the gap between the final two phone calls. Arrington ordered a detailed timeline table combining phone signals, camera times, and that night's weather data to reconstruct the route. Results showed if Dylan left the Gasconade area at 9:45 p.m., as stated, he could not return to Springfield before 10:15. Yet phone data recorded a call originating near the bridge at 10:02. This reinforced the hypothesis that Dylan returned to the bridge a second time, possibly to meet Ethan again or handle a situation after an argument. On February 1, 2024, Captain Arrington submitted a detailed report to the Missouri State Department of Justice Director and Prosecutor's Office, requesting expansion into a preliminary criminal investigation as suspicion related to a disappearance with criminal elements. The document ended with the assessment: the vehicle's reappearance at the scene, along with DNA evidence, are the first physical facts in nearly 20 years, indicating Ethan Miles's disappearance may not have been voluntary as initially concluded. From then on, the Ethan Miles case officially entered the active investigation phase under direct command of the Cold Case Task Force led by Captain J. Arrington. When Captain J. Arrington's investigation team expanded their review in early February 2024, the focus shifted to analyzing phone and financial data, sources that had been overlooked in the original 2004 file. Thanks to modern digital recovery tools, the State Bureau of Investigation's digital team was able to re-extract data from singular network backups stored in the old Missouri Department of Transportation system. After nearly 20 years, these files still existed in encrypted form but were successfully decompressed using next-generation recovery tools. On February 9, 2024, the analysis team noticed a detail never mentioned in prior records: a 4-minute 37-second call from a phone number registered to Dylan Swearingen to Sheriff Warren Keats's number, made at 7:18 a.m. on February 27, 2004, just hours after Ethan was confirmed missing. In the 2004 report, there was no mention of this call. The fact that a witness, also the last person to see the victim, directly called the sheriff before the family reported the disappearance raised new questions. Dylan knew about Ethan's disappearance earlier than anyone else, or he was at the scene that morning. When the team contacted Pulaski County's old personnel records, they discovered Keats was deceased. He passed away in 2015. However, in his archived handover files, there were still work log audio recordings copied to CD upon retirement. One of the audio files, dated February 27, 2004, contained a young man's fast-talking voice. "I think Ethan's truck is still at the bridge. You should go check it out." Keats's response confirmed, "You mean Gasconade? You're sure it's his?" The rest of the file was noisy, but enough for the team to identify the caller as Dylan Swearingen. Thus, Dylan not only knew the exact location of the vehicle before search teams were mobilized, but also proactively contacted the sheriff with the information, yet this detail was never recorded in the official report. Arrington noted in his report, omitting the call could be an administrative error or intentional data removal during 2004 file compilation. However, the timing shows Dylan was near the scene the next morning and knew the vehicle's location, which contradicts his prior statement. To broaden the picture, Arrington's team coordinated with the state's Financial Investigation Unit to recover bank transactions related to Ethan's account from February 26, 27, 2004. Bank records from Springfield Credit Union were requested via the Federal Financial Archive database. The statement found showed a failed withdrawal attempt at 12:29 p.m. on February 27, less than 5 hours after Dylan's call to Keats. The transaction was made using Ethan's ATM card at the same bank's branch in Waynesville, just over 15 miles from the Gasconade Bridge. The system recorded an attempt to withdraw the full balance of over $2,400, but it was denied due to 3 consecutive incorrect PIN entries. The card was then automatically locked. In the bank's technical report, the authorized cardholder was still Ethan Miles. However, investigators discovered this information was not sent to Pulaski Police in 2004, despite regulations requiring reports of suspicious transactions involving missing persons. This evidence further reinforced suspicion that someone attempted to use Ethan's card immediately after his disappearance. When cross-referencing security camera footage from the bank branch, the team found blurry footage showing a man in a dark jacket and baseball cap using the card at the outdoor ATM. Though unclear, the build and height matched Dylan Swearingen's 2004 driver's license records. The video was only 23 seconds long, with no audio, but the timestamp perfectly matched the failed transaction on the statement. Captain Arrington compiled these findings into a report dated February 14, 2024. Dylan Swearingen's call to Sheriff Keats on the morning of February 27, and the attempt to withdraw money using Ethan Miles's card the same day indicate access to the victim's assets and vehicle after the disappearance. The timing overlap strengthened suspicion of concealment or evidence tampering. The report also stated that, in context, the original file's lack of record for both details could not be considered coincidental. Both the call and financial transaction occurred before police officially opened a missing person report, proving someone acted while the incident was not yet formally recognized. After verification with the bank, MSHP received confirmation that the 2004 transaction record had been accessed internally but not handed over to investigators, due to no request. However, in an internal system note, there was a line contacted by local PD, inquiry about Miles' account, no formal follow-up. There was no signature or case number attached, only dated February 28, 2004. One day after the incident, this suggested Sheriff Keats likely made contact, but for some reason, the data was not included in the official report. As the team analyzed the event sequence, the connections became clearer. On the night of February 26. Ethan called Dylan. Traffic cameras recorded Dylan's vehicle at the Gasconade Bridge twice. On the morning of February 27, Dylan called Keats, mentioning the vehicle's location. That same day, there was a failed withdrawal using Ethan's card in Waynesville. The timestamps connected within less than 12 hours, all directly tied to Dylan Swearingen. On February 17, Captain Arrington submitted an updated report to the State Department of Justice Director and requested escalation to a formal criminal investigation. In the conclusion, he wrote, "Recovered phone and financial data indicate a high likelihood that Ethan Miles's disappearance was not voluntary. Evidence shows manipulation of evidence and access to the victim's assets immediately after disappearance. The investigation team assesses this as a case involving post-incident concealment or crime by an acquaintance." That same afternoon, the Missouri State Prosecutor's Office sent an internal notice to the Criminal Investigation Unit, requesting the file MF-04117 status change from active cold case to criminal review. Ongoing. 20 years after Ethan Miles vanished, technical data thought buried in old systems gradually resurfaced, and all traces began converging on one name, Dylan Swearingen. After forensic and financial results were released, Captain J. Arrington's team shifted focus to the most critical remaining evidence, the mini-DV tape found in the metal box near the Gasconade Bridge. This was the only item capable of recording actual footage of what happened the night Ethan Miles disappeared. The tape had been roughly recovered in 2023, but due to severe oxidation and moisture damage, only partial video was readable, with audio nearly completely lost. In early March 2024, MSHP collaborated with the University of Missouri-Columbia's Image Analysis Lab to implement digital restoration using 3D signal processing and noise frequency filtering. The work spanned 8 weeks, led by imaging technology professor Dr. Alan Price. On May 4, 2024, Price's team announced preliminary results. They recovered about 32 minutes of viewable video, including 17 minutes of clear footage, 8 minutes with audio, and the rest noise interspersed with wind sounds. The extracted video file was labeled MF04117 Vid1 and sealed in a secure room. The opening footage showed a low-angle shot, apparently placed on the ground or handheld, with the lens facing the Gasconade Bridge area at night. The timestamp in the corner read February 26, 0421, hours 36 minutes and 58 seconds, matching the final known contact window between Ethan and Dylan. Lighting was dim, with only 2 white beams moving, likely vehicle headlights on high beam. Around the 3rd minute, 2 figures emerged from the direction of a pickup truck, one taller in a light-colored jacket, the other shorter in dark clothing. Technicians used Deep Trace V3 image recognition software to compare body features. Results showed the light-jacketed individual matched Ethan Miles's build and height ratio, while the other aligned with Dylan Swearingen's description. Initial dialogue was nearly inaudible, but after frequency separation and noise filtering, a short audio segment was identified. A young male voice shouting, "I'm not going anywhere, Dylan," followed by a metallic clatter and sounds like running footsteps. In the next section, the camera shook violently, the lens sweeping across the ground, revealing moving legs and headlight beams sweeping over the water. From the 10th minute, the camera shifted to a side angle from the riverbank, capturing the Gasconade Bridge from a distance, with headlights still illuminating part of the water. Footage showed at least 2 people in the middle of the bridge, apparently struggling. A loud impact sounded, metal collision, followed by a heavy splash into the water. About 5 seconds later, an engine revved, and the lights moved out of frame. The audio expert assessed this as clear evidence of violent behavior or physical conflict leading to a fall into the river. However, what drew the most attention from the forensic team was near the end of the tape, from 26:41 to 27:02. In the distant frame, on the left edge, a 3rd figure appeared in faint light. The silhouette wore a dark uniform with reflective stripes on the chest, the style used by Pulaski County Sheriff's deputies from 2000-2005. After enlargement and noise reduction, the analysis team compared the face and gait to archival images of Sheriff Warren Keats while in office. The 2024 Face ID pattern software probability match was 88%, sufficient to note as highly likely the same individual. The footage showed this figure standing 40-50 meters from the struggle, looking toward the bridge but not approaching. He then turned and disappeared from frame as the vehicle departed. Forensic experts viewed this as an extremely significant discovery. If the figure was indeed Keats, it meant he was present at the scene the night Ethan disappeared, completely contradicting the old file stating he only received the report the next morning. Keats's failure to record his presence, combined with Dylan's call to him at 7:18 a.m. the following day, cast the entire original file under suspicion of concealment or event sequence distortion. The complete image forensic report was finalized on May 17, 2024, spanning 42 pages. In the conclusion, Dr. Price clearly stated, 1. Footage shows at least 3 individuals present at the Gasconade Bridge scene on the night of February 26, 2004. 2. Behavior between the 2 primary individuals manifests physical conflict, ending with a sound of falling into water. 3. The appearance of a 3rd individual in uniform is highly likely Sheriff Warren Keats. 4. No signs of camera staging. Recording device matches common consumer mini-DV models of the era. 5. Based on audio and motion, grounds exist to conclude violent behavior occurred. This document was simultaneously sent to the State Bureau of Investigation, Missouri Prosecutor's Office, and Federal Department of Justice per standard protocol for cold cases showing criminal indicators. Captain Arrington received a copy of the report on May 19. He immediately convened an emergency meeting with the full team. In the internal memo, he wrote, "The mini-DV tape provides the first physical evidence proving a conflict between Ethan Miles and Dylan Swearingen occurred. while raising serious questions about Sheriff Keats's role. The level of image and audio match exceeds standard verification thresholds. From this point, the Ethan Miles case was no longer a simple disappearance, but regarded as a criminal case involving violence, concealment, and investigative interference. From a small rusted tape buried in the soil by the Gasconade River, a truth hidden for nearly 20 years began to emerge, with bigger questions than ever. Who recorded the tape, and why was it concealed there? On June 3, 2024, after 3 months of expanded investigation and numerous confirmed forensic results, the Missouri State Prosecutor's Office formally submitted to Pulaski County Court a request for arrest warrants for 3 individuals involved in Ethan Miles's disappearance. The basis in the filing clearly stated, based on physical evidence, DNA analysis results, phone and financial data, and recovered investigative documents, sufficient grounds exist to establish criminal acts under the Missouri Criminal Code. After reviewing the full file, Judge Henry Caldwell signed the warrants at 10:12 a.m. that day, marking the first time in nearly 2 decades that case MF-04117 was officially converted to a criminal case. The 3 charged individuals were Dylan Swearingen, second-degree manslaughter; Whitley Goodman, concealment and interference with criminal evidence; and Warren Keats, destruction of evidence and obstruction of justice. The warrants were immediately forwarded to the Missouri State Highway Patrol and 3 local police agencies. To ensure safety and prevent information leaks, the arrest operation was codenamed Operation Gasconade. Captain J. Arrington's team coordinated directly with the State Special Operations Unit, dividing into 3 prongs deployed to the suspects' current residences. The first target, Dylan Swearingen, 42, was located in Lebanon, where he worked as a heavy truck technician for a private dealership. At 6:30 a.m. on June 5, the MSHP special team surrounded the residential area where Dylan was renting. According to the operation report, he appeared stunned when authorities entered, offered no resistance but repeatedly insisted he already told everything I knew back in 2004. When the warrant was read, the unit commander emphasized, "You are charged with manslaughter in the death of Ethan Miles under Section 565.024 of the Missouri Criminal Code." Dylan was handcuffed and transported to Jefferson City for preliminary interrogation. During a quick search, police seized his phone, personal computer, and several handwritten notes related to February 2004. The second prong headed south to Rolla, where Whitley Goodman, 40, worked at a small hair salon. The arrest was executed at 8:45 a.m. that day. Police described Whitley as shocked and trembling, offering no resistance, but repeatedly asking, "Is this coming back again?" She was charged with concealment and interference with evidence based on new evidence showing she held Ethan's phone and was present at the scene after the incident. Investigative documents noted Whitley received a call from Dylan on the night of February 26, 2004, and the next morning transferred Ethan's personal items to another party. Behavior considered indirect interference with the investigation process. Authorities seized an old digital camcorder and a portable drive suspected of containing data copied from Ethan's original device. The third prong, and most complex, targeted Warren Keats, former Pulaski County Sheriff, who led the initial investigation. Keats, now 69, lived in a Camdenton suburb after retiring in 2008. Arresting a former officer required extra caution from state forces. Per court order, Keats was charged with destruction of evidence and obstruction of justice based on mini-DV video showing his presence at the Gasconade Bridge area the night Ethan disappeared, and his subsequent failure to record it in the official report. Additionally, recovered phone data showed he received a direct call from Dylan Swearingen the next morning, also unmentioned in the file. At 10:20 a.m., 3 patrol vehicles and a special support unit arrived at Keats's lakeside home. When police read the warrant, he did not resist, only saying, "I knew this day would come." In the report, the team leader noted, "Subject cooperative but unusually calm, police seized 2 boxes of personal files, an old handgun, and a notebook with numerous dated entries from 2004. All evidence was sealed and transferred to MSHP for analysis. That afternoon, in Jefferson City, Captain Arrington held a brief press conference with State Department of Justice approval. In his statement, he affirmed, "We now have physical, forensic, and digital evidence strong enough to prove the 2004 disappearance was not voluntary. The new evidence, particularly the mini-DV tape and DNA traces, has put the case back on the right track." However, Arrington stressed that all suspects remain presumed innocent until proven guilty in court. In the internal report sent to the Department of Justice director that day, Arrington noted, "Arrest operation conducted safely, no injuries. 3 suspects currently held separately at Jefferson County Jail, Cole County Jail, and Pulaski County Jail to prevent communication. All electronic devices and personal records seized and awaiting forensic examination." The Missouri State Prosecutor's Office subsequently released a preliminary indictment, Dylan Swearingen, second-degree manslaughter, charged with unintentionally causing the death of Ethan Miles during a conflict and attempting to conceal the aftermath. Whitley Goodman, concealment of evidence, knowing the incident involved criminal behavior, but intentionally retaining and transferring evidence unlawfully. Warren Keats, destruction of evidence and obstruction of justice, abusing position to remove data, fail to record scene information, and falsify official records. News of the arrests spread rapidly across Missouri television channels. Local newspapers called it one of the most comprehensively reinvestigated cold cases in state history. The Springfield and Pulaski County communities, where the case had been forgotten for nearly 20 years, were now abuzz with discussion. Some were shocked to learn the former sheriff was among those charged. By the evening of June 5, all 3 suspects had been transported to Jefferson City for initial court appearance procedures. Simultaneously, the MSHP file system updated case MF04117 status for the 4th time since 2023. Active, criminal indictments filed, June 2024. After 2 decades, Ethan Miles's disappearance was officially determined to be a criminal case involving violence and concealment, beginning a lengthy legal process ahead. 3 days after the arrests, on June 8, 2024, all 3 suspects in the Ethan Miles case were separately interrogated at the Missouri State Bureau of Investigation headquarters in Jefferson City. Captain J. Arrington and Special Prosecutor Sandra Cole directly oversaw the sessions, with full presence of each suspect's legal representation. Interrogation rooms were monitored by 2 panoramic cameras and continuous federal standard audio recording. First was Dylan Swearingen, charged with manslaughter. In the initial statement, Dylan denied all charges. He said he only dropped Ethan off at the bridge and left, and never returned. When the prosecutor presented traffic camera images showing the Ford Ranger at the Gasconade Bridge twice that night, he paused for several seconds before saying, "Maybe someone borrowed my truck." However, his DNA on the metal box and the mini-DV video quickly undermined his defense. After over 4 hours of questioning under Arrington's pressure, Dylan began changing his story. He admitted being at the bridge twice that night and pushing Ethan after arguing over a personal matter. In the recorded statement, Dylan said in a trembling voice, "He got heated. I just pushed him away, didn't think he'd slip. The bridge was wet, and he lost balance. Fell." When asked why he didn't call for help, Dylan bowed his head. "I panicked. I thought he'd surface, but when he didn't, I got scared. Then drove off." He claimed the next morning, with rising water and no sign, he called Sheriff Keats for advice and was told to stay quiet, let authorities handle it. Dylan insisted Keats was the one who came up with the solution, including not disclosing meeting Ethan at the bridge. However, when asked why his DNA was on the buried metal box, Dylan denied involvement, claiming someone took my stuff to frame me. The contradictory responses led the transcript to clearly note, statement inconsistent, admits pushing victim but denies concealment. The second person interrogated was Whitley Goodman, charged with concealment of evidence. She was brought into the room at 2 p.m. that day, appearing tired but cooperative. At the first question, she affirmed, "I didn't kill Ethan. I only found out about it after it happened." When the prosecutor asked who she learned from, Whitley said quietly, "From Dylan, and then from Keats." She stated that the morning after the incident, Dylan came to her apartment in Springfield in a panicked state, saying something happened at the bridge. Whitley recounted, "He said Ethan fell, but wasn't sure he was dead. I said we should call the police, but he said Keats already knew and told him to stay quiet." She admitted keeping Ethan's phone for a short time at Keats's request, who was still the sheriff at the time, because he said he needed to check the data before handing it over. When asked why she agreed, Whitley said he was the police. "I thought I was helping the investigation." In her statement, she described Keats as the one who controlled the information and said the story would be misunderstood if outsiders knew. However, when asked about the mini DV tape, Whitley appeared confused. She insisted she had never seen this tape before, yet knew exactly that Ethan had a camcorder in his truck, a detail not in public reports. The transcript clearly noted, "Statement contains unpublished information, proving the declarant has internal knowledge of the case." The final interrogation of Warren Keats, former Pulaski County Sheriff, took place in the evening. Despite being 69 years old, he maintained a calm demeanor, sitting straight and answering slowly. When Arrington began with a question about his appearance in the mini DV tape, Keats only said, "I don't know any tape. I wasn't there that night." When the prosecutor presented the enlarged image of him from the footage, he shook his head. "Anyone can look alike in the dark." Then, when asked about the 7:18 a.m. call from Dylan, Keats confirmed receiving a call from a young person reporting an abandoned vehicle near the bridge, but claimed he didn't remember who. However, when confronted with the audio recording of his own voice in the work log, where he mentioned Ethan's name, Keats still denied, "That's not a real recording. I never said that." This attitude led the prosecutor to note in the report, "Subject shows a tendency for complete denial, despite audio and visual evidence." When asked about the missing scene photos and conclusion in the original file, Keats said, "Files were lost during storage transfer. I didn't destroy anything." The interrogation lasted nearly 5 hours, ending at 10:30 p.m. Captain Arrington's summary transcript clearly stated, 1. Dylan Swearingen admits presence at the scene, pushing leading to an accident, but denies intentional acts or concealment. 2. Whitley Goodman confirms knowledge of the incident and silence under Keats's direction. 3. Warren Keats denies all charges, does not admit presence or directing role. These contradictory statements forced the Missouri State Prosecutor to conduct forensic cross-verification and re-examine every detail in the video, phone logs, and evidence. In the report sent to the state court on June 10, 2024, Sandra Cole concluded, "The 3 current statements are inconsistent regarding sequence, timing, and post-incident behavior." However, the alignment of key details, the conflict, the next morning's silence, and Keats's intervention indicates a real chain of concealment events. From here, the investigation entered the cross-verification analysis phase and preparation for formal prosecution, with all media attention focused on Jefferson City. After completing the initial interrogation phase, Captain J. Arrington's investigation team continued deploying supplementary scene analysis, a crucial step to reinforce or refute Dylan Swearingen's new statement. From mid-June 2024, the Missouri State Highway Patrol's technical expert team collaborated with Missouri University of Science and Technology to conduct a series of terrain hydrology simulations of the Gasconade Bridge area to assess the likelihood of a body being swept away if the incident matched Dylan's description. Archived weather data showed heavy rain in late February 2004 in Pulaski County, causing the Gasconade River water level to rise over 1.5 meters above average. The measured flow rate at the time exceeded 3.4 meters per second, strong enough to sweep away objects over 70 kilograms in seconds if falling from bridge height. The hydrology team, led by Dr. Carl Benson, an expert in flow dynamics, used 2004 riverbed depth measurements, LiDAR terrain maps, and current flow models to reconstruct the scenario. The 3D simulation results showed that if a person fell from the middle of the Gasconade Bridge, where the video captured the struggle, the strong current and underwater eddies could pull the body over 1.2 miles in 15 minutes before full submersion. Based on water temperature and narrow riverbend terrain, the probability of the body resurfacing within the first 48 hours was only about 12%. After this period, the body would lodge in bottom mud and could move additional miles in subsequent floods. The technical report concluded, the likelihood of the victim dying from falling into the river and the body being swept away is entirely feasible, consistent with February 2004 hydrological conditions. Concurrent with the hydrology simulation, Arrington's technical investigation team examined the 2000 Ford Ranger owned by Dylan Swearingen, the vehicle seized upon his arrest. The truck, still in relatively intact condition, was forensically examined at MSHP's automotive lab in Columbia. Under a new paint layer, technicians discovered multiple covered scratches, mainly on the right front bumper edge and rear wheel trim. Using UV light and paint sample analysis, they identified residual original paint in metallic silver blue, matching the type used on the Gasconade Bridge during a 2003 repaint per Missouri Department of Transportation maintenance records. These scratches measured an average height of 87 centimeters, precisely corresponding to the steel guardrail height on the bridge. When comparing structures, the technical team concluded the scratches are highly likely from direct collision with the Gasconade Bridge guardrail or an object of identical structure, not caused by rough terrain. Under the chassis, they also found a small amount of rust sediment and deposits with chemical composition containing manganese and iron in ratios, matching soil samples from the Gasconade riverbank. According to the geological analyst, this indicated the vehicle had direct contact or stopped very close to the water's edge. In the comprehensive report dated June 20th, the Automotive Forensics Lab clearly stated, physical traces on the vehicle align with the scene described in the mini-DV tape and Dylan Swearingen's admitted pushing. No evidence the vehicle was scratched later or under different conditions. The report was sent directly to the Missouri State Prosecutor's Office and added to file MF-04117 under physical correlation evidence. To ensure objectivity, Captain Arrington invited 2 independent experts from the National Forensic Institute to re-evaluate all results. After reviewing the simulation renderings, GPS terrain data, and physical samples, they concurred that the likelihood of Ethan Miles falling into the river was high and scientifically grounded, while mechanical traces on Swearingen's vehicle indicated approached the bridge guardrail at the time of the incident. The supplementary scene analysis report, 62 pages long, finalized on June 25, 2024, concluded 1. Gasconade flow conditions in February 2004 were strong enough to sweep away and prevent body recovery. 2. Dylan Swearingen's vehicle shows signs of physical contact with the Gasconade Bridge guardrail. 3. Soil and paint samples reinforce Dylan's presence at the scene as captured in the video. And 4. Combined with Dylan's admitted pushing, grounds exist to determine unintentional manslaughter occurred. Prosecutor Sandra Cole noted in the summary sent to the Missouri State Court, supplementary technical results have strengthened the chain of indirect and direct evidence, proving Ethan Miles's cause of death aligns with being pushed during a conflict. The body's disappearance is explained by natural factors, not diminishing the defendant's legal responsibility. On June 28, all results were presented to the Federal Prosecution Counsel for charge-level consideration. Missouri Department of Justice legal experts assessed the report as a pivotal turning point, establishing a logical and consistent event sequence, conflict on the bridge, collision leading to riverfall, and subsequent concealment chain by Keats and Whitley. When the report was internally released, Captain Arrington added a note to the archive copy, time to connect every piece, the current, the vehicle, and the actions. The scene has spoken, even after 20 years of silence. With a supplementary scene report, the Ethan Miles case was officially strengthened scientifically and legally, shifting from suspected manslaughter to manslaughter proven by physical evidence. In early July 2024, after scene forensic results and supplementary analyses were completed, the Ethan Miles case, file code MF04117, officially entered the prosecution preparation phase. Missouri State Prosecutor Cassie Coleman, who had handled numerous complex criminal cases in the 2010s, was appointed lead prosecutor replacing Sandra Cole, now shifted to legal advisor for the State Department of Justice. Coleman, renowned for her meticulousness and persistence, immediately formed a special prosecution team of 5 assistant prosecutors, 2 forensic experts, and 1 independent judicial investigator to review the entire file. On July 2, Coleman's team began compiling all documents, evidence, and statements. The case file at that point was nearly 2,000 pages thick, including DNA forensic transcripts, scene technical reports, bank data, phone recordings, traffic camera images, witness and suspect statements, and mini-DV tape analysis. Every detail was checked to ensure legality and an unbroken chain of evidence custody. Any document potentially questionable in authenticity was separately sealed to avoid impacting the main file structure. Coleman spent nearly a week re-examining all contradictory statements from Dillon, Whitley, and Keats. In her personal notes, she wrote, "Each tells a different version, but all physical evidence converges on the same night, same location, and same actions." Based on these factors, the prosecution team determined sufficient grounds for criminal charges under 3 main counts: second-degree manslaughter, obstruction of justice, and destruction of evidence. Second-degree manslaughter applied to Dylan Swearingen, who admitted in his statement to pushing Ethan during an argument, leading to the victim falling into the Gasconade River. State forensic lab technical reports and hydrology simulation results reinforced the likelihood of death by fall, consistent with causing another's death without intent to kill, but with serious recklessness, per Section 565.02(4) of the Missouri Criminal Code. Whitley Goodman was charged with obstruction of justice, based on her own statement that she kept Ethan's phone at Keats's request and did not report the incident to authorities. Providing false information and concealing device data was viewed as delaying or distorting the investigation process. Former Sheriff Warren Keats was charged with destruction of evidence, stemming from his appearance in the mini-DV video at the scene, but subsequent failure to record his presence in the official report, along with allowing scene photos and original investigation conclusion to go missing. Coleman wrote in the court submission, in his role as head of the law enforcement agency at the time, Keats's intentional removal or concealment of investigative data is a serious violation of public duty principles, constituting obstruction and evidence destruction under Section 575.100. By July 9, the complete indictment was drafted with 3 main sections and 9 evidence appendices. The first section summarized context and event progression. The second listed all physical, digital, and forensic evidence. The third specified charges, proposed penalties, and legal basis. A total of 418 pages were printed and signed by Prosecutor Cassie Coleman. On the cover page, the bolded title State of Missouri v. Dylan Swearingen, Whitley Goodman, Warren Keats, Case MF04117, Pulaski County. On July 11th, the file was officially transferred to Pulaski County Court. The receipt transcript noted this as a special prosecution for a cold case file existing over 20 years. The court assigned Judge Robert F. Hensley, experienced in serious criminal trials, as presiding judge. The judge's office immediately issued a temporary notice, file accepted, preliminary hearing expected within 30 days. That same day, Coleman held a brief press conference in Jefferson City. In her live televised statement, she spoke slowly and clearly. After 20 years, we can finally bring light to what was forgotten. This is not just a missing person case, but a story of accountability and truth. She emphasized the charges were based on independently verified evidence chains, not isolated statements, and affirmed every step followed legal procedure. Public reaction in Pulaski County surged immediately. Local news outlets covered it extensively. describing it as a rare legal event where a 2004 disappearance is prosecuted thanks to next-generation forensic technology. Many residents expressed hope that the Miles family would finally see justice. Internally at the prosecutor's office, Coleman required absolute confidentiality for unpublished case details from all staff. A 32-page guideline was issued, regulating evidence storage, media management, and speech limitation. She noted at the end of the directive, "We cannot allow administrative errors to further harm anyone." By the end of July 2024, the entire prosecution file was finalized and confirmed received by Pulaski County Court. The Missouri State Judicial Data System updated the latest status for case MF-04-117, filed for prosecution. Pulaski County Court, July 2024. After 20 years, the name Ethan Miles finally reappeared in the list of active criminal case files, no longer an unnamed missing person, but the center of a case followed by the entire state. On August 19, 2024, the case of the state of Missouri versus Dylan Swearingen, Whitley Goodman, and Warren Keats was officially brought to public trial at Pulaski County Court in Waynesville. This was the most closely followed trial of the year by the public and media, not only involving a disappearance spanning 2 decades, but also touching the reputation of local law enforcement. The court arranged special security entry tightly controlled, only pre-registered reporters allowed. The backbenches were packed with residents, including Ethan Miles's family, his parents, hair now white, sitting quietly amid the crowd. Judge Robert F. Hensley presided, with lead prosecutor Cassie Coleman and 3 appointed defense attorneys for each defendant. The trial lasted 10 days, divided into 4 phases: indictment presentation, evidence disclosure, cross-examination, and sentencing. On the first day, Coleman read the over 30-page indictment, summarizing the entire process from 2004 to the present. Her voice was resolute. Defendant Dylan Swearingen caused the death of Ethan Miles during a conflict and intentionally concealed the act. Defendant Whitley Goodman knew the truth, but remained silent, while former Sheriff Warren Keats abused his position to destroy evidence and falsify the investigation file. The evidence presentation phase began on the second day. Captain J. Arrington's investigation team was called as technical witnesses, introducing all scientific evidence. The large courtroom screen displayed the restored mini-DV video. When the sound of falling into water played, the room fell dead silent. Only the rustling of note-taking paper could be heard. Coleman emphasized the frame with the third distant figure. That person is Keats, who later claimed he was not at the scene. Images do not lie. She continued presenting DNA analysis results, showing Dylan's traces on the metal box buried near the bridge, along with traffic camera data, capturing the Ford Ranger passing the area twice on the night Ethan disappeared. Dylan's defense attorney attempted to argue that the push was an impulsive act without intent and any death was an accident. However, when the prosecution played the initial confession recording, where Dylan admitted panicking and leaving without saving his friend, the argument quickly collapsed. Coleman stated firmly, "Abandoning someone falling into freezing water, not calling for help, not reporting to police, that is not an accident. That is manslaughter." Whitley Goodman, charged with obstruction of justice, appeared in a simple gray dress. She stood before the court and confirmed her statement that she knew about it, but stayed silent at Keats's request. She said, voice choking, "I was scared. He was the sheriff. I thought I was helping him, but I was wrong." Whitley's attorney asked the court to consider her psychological circumstances and full cooperation in the new investigation. As for Warren Keats, he sat silently throughout the questioning. When asked why he did not record his presence at the scene, he replied, "I only went there after receiving a report, but saw no one. I didn't destroy evidence, I just followed procedure when there were no signs of crime." The prosecutor countered by displaying the enlarged photo of him from the mini-DV tape, along with light comparison proving the image authentic. Coleman said, "You were not only present, you ordered silence." The statement made Keats briefly bow his head, but he did not respond. In the cross-examination phase, Technical experts confirmed the Gasconade River simulation, proving the body could be completely swept away, reinforcing the prosecution's argument that Ethan died due to manslaughter. The forensic team presented the report on paint traces on Dylan's vehicle, matching the bridge guardrail. Each piece of evidence was arranged logically, tightly, and connected like a chain, leaving no room for reasonable doubt. On the 9th day, all 3 defendants were invited to make final statements. Dylan, after long silence, said quietly, "I didn't mean to kill him. I wish I could go back to that night." Whitley only cried, while Keats maintained his cold demeanor, staring straight at the judge's bench. On the morning of August 29th, Judge Hensley delivered the verdict. In the opening of the ruling, he said, "Justice does not depend on time. Though 20 years have passed, the evidence remains, and the truth is clear." He then read each sentence, Dylan Swearingen, second-degree manslaughter, sentenced to 25 years imprisonment at Boonville Correctional Facility. Whitley Goodman, obstruction of justice, received a 10-year suspended sentence, plus 1,200 hours of community service and obligation to cooperate with investigation. Warren Keats, destruction of evidence and obstruction of justice, sentenced to 5 years imprisonment, ineligible for parole. When the sentences were read, the courtroom fell silent. Ethan's parents sat motionless, hands clasped tightly. Cassie Coleman stepped forward, gently placing a final case file copy on the clerk's desk, the last version of file, MF0-4117, now complete. Outside in the hallway, reporters captured the scene of Pulaski residents gathering quietly, many bringing flowers to place at the Gasconade Bridge, where 20 years earlier, Ethan Miles vanished without a trace. That afternoon, the Missouri Department of Justice issued an official statement. The Ethan D. Miles case, missing since 2004, was tried and closed in August 2024. Pulaski County Court sentenced 3 involved defendants. File MF0-4117 is officially closed. In the state data system, the final status of the case was updated. Case resolved, convictions entered, August 2024. After 2 decades, the story of the young man who disappeared by the Gasconade River ended in the light of the law, where truth, though late, still found its way back. The Ethan Miles case is not just the story of a young man vanishing by the Gasconade River. It reflects a painful reality in modern American society, when trust in the justice system is sometimes eroded by negligence, errors, and human silence. In 2004, a small deviation, an unsealed vehicle, a few lost photos, caused an entire case to fade into oblivion for 2 decades. Without DNA technology, traffic cameras, and the persistence of later investigators, Ethan's death might forever remain a disappearance of unknown cause. Captain J. Arrington's admission that the truth didn't die, but was wasted for 20 years in a file cabinet, is a powerful wake-up call for the legal system and American citizens. Justice only exists when preserved through transparency and determination. From this story, the practical lesson for life today is to never underestimate what seems small, a carelessly written report, an overlooked statement, or a forgotten person. In a vast country like the United States, where modern technology and digitized data increasingly dominate, each individual's responsibility is not just to believe in justice, but to help maintain it, report the truth, ask questions, and refuse silence. Ethan Miles may be gone, but from his tragedy, Missouri has rewritten missing person investigation procedures, proof that from mistakes and patience, America can still move closer to the justice every citizen deserves. If you believe every truth, no matter how long buried, deserves to be found, subscribe to the channel to join us in continuing the journey to seek justice. Thank you for following the Ethan Miles story. See you in the next video with another cold case where the past is still waiting to be heard.